Donald Trump is entering what was expected to be the peak moment of America's national image, the World Cup on American soil. An event that any administration would want to turn into a symbol of strength, prosperity, and global influence. But instead of glory, signs of instability are appearing everywhere. Only a few weeks before the first ball is kicked, a wave of negative headlines is beginning to surround the tournament, from legal investigations, political controversy, to growing concerns about security and public health. Everything seems to be piling up in a way that is becoming impossible to ignore. The World Cup was supposed to be a moment for the United States to open its doors to the world. But now, the question is no longer, how spectacular will the tournament be, but whether the system is strong enough to withstand the pressure that is coming. As millions of people from around the world prepare to flood into the country, every part of the national system will be tested. Infrastructure, the economy, security, and especially the ability to respond to unexpected risks. What worries many people is not a single isolated incident. It is the combination of multiple factors happening at the same time, like storm clouds gathering across the same sky. Is this simply temporary controversy before a major global event? Or is it a warning sign that a nightmare is slowly taking shape behind the dazzling stage of the World Cup? Before we talk about the even bigger problems, let us start with the most basic element of any World Cup: money. FIFA once promised that the tournament would generate enormous revenue for the host cities. Hotels would be fully booked, restaurants would operate at maximum capacity, and transportation and tourism services would explode with demand. But the current reality does not completely match that optimistic picture. Several cities have already begun reporting organization costs far beyond the original estimates. Infrastructure, security, staffing, and unexpected expenses are rising much faster than anticipated. At the same time, hotel bookings and consumer spending have still not reached the levels that were once promised. And then came the most sensitive issue of all: ticket prices. In a very short period of time, ticket prices for most matches increased by nearly 34%. Some major matches have recorded historically high prices, especially the final, where a single seat could cost thousands of dollars. That has led many people to ask a serious question. Is this simply the natural result of supply and demand? Or is there some kind of intervention designed to create artificial scarcity and push prices even higher? The Attorneys General of New York and New Jersey have officially launched investigations, demanding that FIFA provide information about its pricing system, ticket distribution process, and marketing strategy. If these suspicions are confirmed, this will no longer be just a story about expensive tickets. It will become a story about trust. Because the World Cup is not an exclusive concert for the wealthy. It is a global sporting event where fans from every corner of the world expect to participate without feeling excluded by overwhelming financial barriers. And once trust begins to crack, the chain reaction can move very quickly. If you are still watching up to this point and you feel these warning signs are worth thinking about, comment number 1 below. Simple as that. So I know you are here with me, analyzing every layer of what may really be happening behind this tournament. At the same time as the economic controversy, a quiet wave of international boycott calls is beginning to form. Across social media and within certain global football fan communities, discussions about limiting participation in the World Cup in the United States are starting to appear. The reasons are not only about ticket prices, but also about the political climate and immigration policies. The World Cup has always been seen as a symbol of openness and unity. Fans from all over the world travel together to support their teams, connect with one another, and celebrate football, regardless of nationality or political beliefs. But when a sporting event becomes surrounded by political controversy, the image of the host nation suddenly becomes more sensitive than ever. Some groups argue that stricter entry controls, combined with tougher security messaging, could make certain visitors feel unwelcome. Even if the number of people truly planning to boycott remains relatively small, in the digital media era, perception and public image can sometimes matter more than statistics themselves. All it takes is for one trend to spread across social media, and public sentiment can shift extremely fast. And when the World Cup depends on millions of international spectators, even a small psychological shift can create a chain reaction with consequences that are impossible to predict. As the controversy continues to spread, security is becoming another major flashpoint. The United States Department of Homeland Security has confirmed that ICE agents will be present at World Cup matches across the country. According to the official statement, the goal is to prevent counterfeit tickets, human trafficking, smuggling, and other criminal activities that could emerge when massive crowds gather together. On paper, that sounds completely reasonable. An event attracting millions of people will obviously require a very high level of protection. But in reality, the image of ICE, an agency closely associated with immigration enforcement, appearing at an international sports festival creates a far more complicated psychological effect. The World Cup has traditionally been seen as neutral ground, a place where fans come to enjoy football, not to worry about documents, immigration status, or possible inspections. Some observers believe that even if the intention is purely about security, the highly visible presence of immigration enforcement could still make certain international visitors feel uneasy. In the age of social media, images often spread faster and more powerfully than official statements. Just one viral video framed in a negative way can trigger a wave of backlash far beyond what anyone expected. Security is always necessary. But the way security is presented can sometimes determine how the world views the host nation. And when the World Cup becomes a global stage, every detail has the potential to turn into a major international story. If economic concerns are shaking public trust, and security issues are creating image controversies, then public health may become the most unpredictable variable of all. Right now, an Ebola outbreak is spreading across parts of Central Africa, with thousands of suspected infections and an alarming number of deaths being reported. Even though the outbreak is geographically far from the United States, in a world connected by thousands of flights every single day, physical distance is no longer an absolute barrier. The World Cup is expected to generate millions of international movements within only a few weeks. Airports, hotels, public transportation systems, and stadiums will become densely connected points of interaction. Under ideal conditions, a strong disease surveillance system could detect risks early and contain them quickly. But many experts argue that current response capabilities are no longer as strong as they once were, following years of budget cuts, staffing reductions, and weakened international cooperation programs. The CDC was once viewed as one of the strongest lines of defense against global health threats. But as resources become more limited, a serious question begins to emerge. Does the system still have enough personnel and enough real-time data to monitor millions of international travelers effectively? Health experts emphasize that the danger is not that a major outbreak is guaranteed to happen. The danger lies in the possibility of a delayed response when the very first warning signs appear. It only takes a few undetected cases inside a densely crowded environment for transmission speed to rise exponentially. The World Cup is no longer just a sporting event. It is becoming a stress test for the endurance of an entire national healthcare system. And when millions of people gather together within such a short period of time, even the smallest weakness in the system can suddenly become amplified on a scale never seen before. In response to these growing concerns, many public health experts have started speaking out. They argue that the issue is not only about one specific outbreak. The deeper concern lies within the overall structure of the response system itself. When international cooperation programs are reduced and early warning mechanisms are no longer operating at full capacity, the danger is not that a crisis is guaranteed to happen, but that the ability to detect and respond quickly may be weakened. One expert explained it this way: when a system operates smoothly, almost nobody notices it, but when the system begins to fail, every mistake immediately becomes magnified. The World Cup is the definition of a stress test, a full-scale pressure test for an entire management system. Millions of people moving across cities, hundreds of events happening simultaneously, countless security and health operations all needing to work together with precision. If every part of the system functions in sync, the tournament could pass smoothly without major disruption. But if even one link slows down, from disease surveillance to coordination between federal and state agencies to crisis communication, the consequences could spread extremely fast. This is no longer just a story about football matches. It is a story about the ability to govern effectively under extreme pressure. And when the entire world is watching, even a single mistake will no longer remain just a domestic issue. The World Cup was supposed to be a symbol of unity, celebration, and national pride. A global stage where the United States could showcase its organizational power, economic strength, and international influence. But when you step back and look at the full picture, the ticket price controversies, the legal investigations, the growing international boycott movement, the security image debates, and the public health warnings, the story suddenly becomes far more complicated. None of these factors alone guarantees disaster. But when multiple warning signs begin appearing at the same time, the risk no longer feels purely theoretical. History has shown that massive global events rarely fail because of one single mistake. They fail when multiple weak points exist at the same time and are not addressed quickly enough. The real question is no longer whether problems might happen. The real question is this: if something does go wrong, will the system be fast enough, transparent enough, and coordinated enough to contain it? The World Cup could still become a spectacular success. But it could also become the moment that forces the world to ask much bigger questions about what was happening behind the scenes long before the tournament even began. In the coming weeks, the eyes of the world will be focused on the United States, not only to watch who scores goals, but to watch how an entire system performs under global pressure. If you want to continue following deeper analysis based on real data and real developments behind the biggest headlines, subscribe to the channel right now. Because the World Cup may only be the beginning. The real story is just getting started. There is something fascinating about global events like the World Cup. They do not just test the players on the field, they test an entire nation. Does the transportation system operate smoothly? Does security coordination function effectively? Is information transparent and delivered on time? And most importantly, when pressure rises, who is ultimately responsible? Sometimes, what truly worries people is not that a crisis has already happened. It is the feeling that if something does happen, we are not entirely certain the system is fully prepared. The modern world is completely different from what it was a few decades ago. News now spreads within seconds. A small incident can become a global topic in only a matter of minutes. In that environment, the World Cup is no longer just a sporting event. It becomes a test of risk management in a hyper-connected era. If everything runs smoothly, this could become a massive image victory for the United States. But if problems emerge, even relatively small ones, they could trigger much deeper debates about how the system itself is functioning behind the scenes. So the final question is no longer whether the World Cup will happen. It absolutely will happen. The real question is this: when the stadium lights finally turn on, is everything behind the curtain truly ready? And that is exactly what the entire world is quietly watching.